What happens if an elderly person has no one to care for them? 6 ways to stay safe. Imagine this for a moment. It's late afternoon. The sun is setting, casting long shadows across the room. In the corner, there's an empty chair by the window, a place where someone used to sit. That someone is elderly, maybe a grandparent, an aunt, or even a neighbor. They've spent their life nurturing, loving, and guiding those around them. But now, that same space sits empty, and the person who once filled it is facing an all too common, heartbreaking reality. No one is there to care for them. It's easy to think this might not affect us, or maybe even to assume that elderly people always have someone by their side. But what if I told you that right now, somewhere in your neighborhood, there's an elderly person sitting alone, feeling forgotten, struggling in silence? This is a conversation we need to have. Not just because it's important, but because it could change the way we look at aging, and more importantly, how we treat those who once cared for us. In today's video, we're going to explore what happens when an elderly person doesn't have anyone to care for them, the physical, emotional, and sometimes legal dangers they face. But more importantly, I'll share 6 practical ways that we can keep our elderly loved ones safe, secure, and cared for, even if we're not always around. So stay with me, because this is not just a problem. It's an opportunity for us to step up and make a real difference in the lives of the elderly. Let's dive in. Part 1. The hidden reality of elderly care. What happens without support? Now, before we get into the ways we can help, let's take a moment to truly understand the gravity of what happens when an elderly person has no one to care for them. It's not just about physical health. It's about their emotional well-being, their dignity, and even their safety. 1. Loneliness and isolation. One of the biggest challenges elderly people face when they don't have anyone to care for them is loneliness. It's more than just being alone. It's the feeling of being forgotten, of having no one to turn to. Imagine spending days, maybe even weeks, without a conversation, a friendly voice, or someone to share a meal with. Loneliness has serious consequences, both mentally and physically. Studies show that social isolation can increase the risk of depression, anxiety, and even dementia. For an elderly person, this sense of isolation can be debilitating. 2. Physical health risks. Now, think about their physical health. As we age, our bodies become frailer, our mobility slows down, and chronic conditions often get worse. If no one is around to help with medication, monitor changes in health, or simply assist with getting to the doctor, it can lead to severe complications. A fall, something as simple as tripping over a rug, can become life-threatening if there's no one to help immediately. And many elderly people, especially those living alone, avoid seeking medical help because they don't want to burden others. Without a caregiver, their health issues can go unnoticed until it's too late. 3. Financial struggles. Financial concerns are another huge part of the equation. Many elderly individuals rely on pensions or fixed income, which often aren't enough to cover all their living expenses. Without someone to help manage their finances, they may struggle to pay for basic needs like food, medications, or utility bills. And worse yet, some may even become victims of fraud or financial exploitation by people who take advantage of their vulnerability. This is a sad reality for too many seniors, and it's one of the most preventable risks. 4. Legal and safety concerns. When elderly individuals don't have a trusted person looking out for them, they're at a higher risk of being taken advantage of legally. Elder abuse, whether emotional, physical, or financial, happens more than we realize. Without someone to advocate for them, these issues often go unnoticed. This lack of protection can lead to more harm, both mentally and physically. And this isn't just something that happens far away in other communities. It's happening right now in places close to home. An elderly person you may know could be struggling in silence, dealing with all of these challenges. This brings us to why we must act. Because no one deserves to live their final years in fear, neglect, or loneliness. We all have a role to play, and the first step is understanding these hidden realities. Part 2. What you can do. 6 ways to stay safe. Okay, now that we've understood the deep challenges an elderly person faces when no one is there to care for them, let's talk about what we can do to help. These aren't just theoretical ideas, they're real, practical steps that can make a world of difference. 1. Building a support network. The very first step is ensuring that no elderly person is completely alone. Building a strong support network is crucial. This doesn't always mean immediate family members. It can also include neighbors, friends, or even community groups. Sometimes, the simple act of checking in once a day or offering a ride to the doctor is enough to make sure someone is never truly isolated. How do we do this? Start by encouraging elderly individuals to join community groups. Think local senior clubs, book clubs, or volunteering programs. Even if they don't actively participate, being part of a group or a regular meetup can combat loneliness and help them feel connected. For example, I know a local community center that offers social events for the elderly, and the impact it has on their mental and emotional health is incredible. You'd be surprised at how much something as simple as a weekly coffee can do. 2. Embracing technology for safety and connection. Next, let's talk about technology. Technology is no longer just for the younger generation. It's a lifeline for many elderly people. From smartphones that allow them to stay in touch with family and friends, to smart home devices that monitor health and safety, the possibilities are endless. How can technology help? Think about smart home systems like motion detectors, fall alarms, or even simple emergency buttons. These systems are designed to immediately alert someone if help is needed, giving both the elderly person and their family members peace of mind. I personally helped an elderly neighbor set up a smart security system that not only helps her feel safe, but it also sends alerts to her son if there's any unusual movement in her home. It's a small investment that can save lives. Additionally, teaching them how to use video calling apps like Zoom or FaceTime can help bridge the gap between generations and keep them connected with loved ones. Technology has the power to make the world feel a little smaller for those who are far away. 3. Home modifications for better safety. Let's now talk about home safety. For many elderly individuals, their homes are where they feel most comfortable, but this comfort can quickly turn into a safety hazard if the home is not prepared. What modifications can be made? Adding simple changes, like installing grab bars in bathrooms, ensuring that all areas are well lit, or removing tripping hazards such as loose rugs, can go a long way in preventing accidents. A little thought can make a huge difference. For instance, my grandmother has a slip-resistant rug and handrails in the bathroom, which have made her feel much more secure. These small adjustments can help elderly people maintain their independence while reducing the risk of injury. Part 3. Professional help and caregiving services. Now that we've covered how a support network and home safety can make a huge difference, let's dive into another important aspect: professional help. Sometimes the need for care goes beyond what family, friends, or neighbors can provide. This is where professional caregivers come into play. Whether it's a home health aide, a visiting nurse, or even a caregiver from a senior living facility, these professionals bring the expertise and support that elderly individuals need to stay safe and healthy. Why professional help is so important? For elderly people with chronic conditions, memory loss, or mobility issues, having someone trained to assist with their medical needs can be a game changer. These caregivers don't just help with physical tasks like bathing or dressing. They can also monitor medications, provide transportation to appointments, and ensure that the elderly person is following proper health protocols. How do you find the right caregiver? Finding a trustworthy and reliable caregiver is crucial, so it's important to do your research. Look for agencies that are licensed and accredited, and always check references. The person providing care should not only be experienced, but also compassionate and patient. I remember a family friend who was struggling with her mother's Alzheimer's diagnosis. They hired a caregiver who helped not just with physical tasks, but also provided companionship, which made a huge difference in both their lives. The family was able to focus on their own work and personal lives, knowing their mother was well cared for. Sometimes, this support can take a huge emotional burden off the family. If hiring a full-time caregiver isn't an option, another alternative is to look for adult daycare services. These services offer elderly individuals a place to spend time during the day, participate in activities, and receive supervision, all while giving caregivers a much-needed break. 4. Health monitoring and routine checkups. Next, let's talk about one of the most vital things any elderly person can do to stay safe: routine health checkups and health monitoring. When you're elderly, managing your health can become overwhelming. Chronic conditions, multiple prescriptions, and constant doctor's visits can all feel like too much. But regular checkups and health monitoring are crucial in ensuring that everything stays in check. Many health issues, especially for the elderly, don't show immediate symptoms until they become quite serious. Having someone who can monitor these changes early on makes all the difference. How can you help with health monitoring? Encourage elderly family members to visit their doctor regularly for checkups and make sure they're taking their prescribed medications on time. A simple daily pill box can help them stay on track. Also, using health monitoring tools like blood pressure cuffs or glucose meters can help catch any alarming changes. Another option is telemedicine. Many healthcare providers now offer virtual consultations. This means that elderly individuals don't always have to leave the house to get medical advice or prescriptions. It's a huge benefit, especially for those with mobility issues or those who live in remote areas. In fact, one of my elderly relatives recently began using a wearable health monitor that tracks her heart rate and sleep patterns. She can send the data directly to her doctor, who can identify potential health issues before they become more serious. This is one of the easiest and most effective ways to help elderly people stay on top of their health, even if you're not physically there to monitor them. Having a professional caregiver or health monitoring system in place also reduces the chances of missing something important, which could lead to hospitalization or worse. It's about prevention and constant care, even from a distance. Part 4. Legal protection and financial planning. Now, let's talk about something a lot of people often overlook: legal protection and financial planning. When an elderly person has no one to care for them, they are at risk of being taken advantage of, either financially or legally. Elder abuse, whether it's financial fraud, emotional manipulation, or even physical harm, is a reality for far too many vulnerable seniors. Without a trusted person in their corner, they might not even realize when they're being exploited, or they may feel too ashamed to speak up. Why is legal protection essential? Creating legal documents, such as a will, living will, or power of attorney, is essential to make sure their wishes are carried out. A power of attorney ensures that someone is legally allowed to make decisions on their behalf if they become incapacitated. Without this, families may struggle to make medical or financial decisions for their loved ones when the time comes. In addition, creating a will can prevent family disputes and make sure that belongings and assets go to the right people. It may seem like a difficult conversation to have, but it's one of the most important steps for elderly individuals to ensure that their rights and desires are respected. Financial planning is also a must. Many elderly people live on fixed incomes, and it's crucial to manage their money carefully. This includes budgeting, avoiding fraud, and saving for unexpected medical costs. Having someone involved in these decisions, like a trusted family member or financial advisor, can provide much-needed security. There's also the issue of elder financial abuse. Scams targeting the elderly are all too common, whether it's fraudulent phone calls, online scams, or even family members misusing funds. If the elderly person doesn't have someone they trust to manage these finances, they may fall victim to these schemes. This is why it's so important for family members to step in and ensure that their financial matters are in order. I personally know someone who helped their elderly parents set up a joint bank account with limited access for certain expenses, which allowed them to monitor their spending and ensure no fraudulent activities occurred. They also worked with an attorney to create a durable power of attorney, allowing them to step in and make important decisions when necessary. Part 5. The emotional impact of elderly neglect. Now, let's take a moment to address something that often gets overlooked when we talk about elderly care: the emotional impact. We've discussed the physical dangers, the financial struggles, and the practical ways we can help. But there's another side to this problem that's just as important: the emotional and psychological toll that neglect or isolation takes on elderly individuals. Psychological toll of isolation. When an elderly person has no one to care for them, it's not just their body that suffers, it's their spirit. Feeling forgotten, unseen, or unloved can lead to depression, anxiety, and an overwhelming sense of helplessness. In fact, studies have shown that loneliness can be as harmful to your health as smoking 15 cigarettes a day. And for the elderly, it can result in a drastic decline in both mental and physical health. Imagine waking up every day with no one to talk to, no one to share your thoughts or feelings with. Over time, it wears you down. The sense of isolation becomes more pronounced, and depression sets in. It's not just about being lonely. It's about losing the will to live, to fight, and to hope. For example, I know of an elderly neighbor who lived alone for years, and though she was physically healthy, the loneliness was slowly eroding her mental health. She would often decline social invitations and avoid talking to her family, believing that they were too busy to care. But when she began to engage with her local community group, her entire outlook changed. The small act of socializing, even if just for a few minutes each week, helped bring back her energy and joy. Loss of dignity. Another profound emotional effect of neglect is the loss of dignity. As we age, our physical and mental abilities naturally change, but that doesn't mean we should be treated as less than or invisible. When an elderly person has no one to care for them, they often feel like a burden, even if they aren't. This loss of dignity can be devastating and is a huge contributor to depression and low self-esteem. In our culture, we often forget that the elderly are still valuable members of society. They have wisdom, stories, and life experiences that are incredibly important. Yet, when they're isolated, they feel their value slipping away. It's essential for us to recognize the elderly not just as people who need care, but as individuals with inherent worth and contributions to offer. One of my own family members, an elderly aunt, once expressed how much it meant to her just to be acknowledged by others. She said, "I may not be as strong or as sharp as I once was, but I still have a voice. I want to be heard." That simple statement really struck me. It reminded me that care goes beyond physical needs. It's about dignity and respect. Part 6. Takeaway messages. How to make a difference. Now that we've explored the challenges and the ways to help, let's focus on what we can all do to make a real difference in the lives of elderly individuals. This isn't just about large-scale changes. It's about the small, consistent acts that can have a lasting impact. It's time for action. And here are a few takeaways to remember. 1. Be present. Sometimes, the simplest thing we can do is just be present. Whether it's a phone call, a visit, or even just checking in with a neighbor, showing up can make all the difference. Loneliness is one of the most devastating aspects of aging, and by offering companionship, We can provide not just a person to talk to, but someone to rely on. I remember my grandmother always saying that people who come to visit are the best medicine. And it's true. The power of human connection is incredible. It's not about grand gestures, but consistent effort. 2. Advocate for elder care. We can also take our concern beyond personal action and advocate for better elder care policies. This could mean supporting local senior centers, volunteering at nursing homes, or even lobbying for government programs that support elderly care. There are organizations and initiatives that are making a difference, and we can be part of that movement. Even something as simple as raising awareness on social media or sharing helpful resources can contribute to a broader cultural shift. Together, we can build a stronger, more compassionate society that values its elders. 3. Take action. Early. Don't wait until it's too late to step in. Whether it's creating a will, ensuring that an elderly loved one has a support network, or simply checking on them every day, early intervention is key. The earlier we take action, the better we can prevent many of the issues we've discussed today. Encourage elderly people to take proactive steps in managing their health, legal matters, and finances. The peace of mind it provides is priceless. 4. Educate and empower. Another important step is to educate both ourselves and the elderly on what resources are available. Many elderly people are unaware of the support systems and services that could help them. Help guide them through the process of finding resources, whether it's a caregiver, a community program, or even technology that could improve their lives. 5. Show compassion and respect. Lastly, always remember to show compassion and respect to the elderly. They've given so much in their lifetimes, and the least we can do is offer the same in return. Treat them with kindness, listen to their stories, and always value their presence. Conclusion: reaffirming the value of our elders. As we wrap up this conversation, let's take a moment to reflect on the incredible value our elderly loved ones bring to our lives. They've shaped the world we live in, guided us, and loved us in ways we can never truly repay. But we can ensure that they live the final years of their lives with the same care, love, and respect they gave us. In this fast-paced world, it's easy to forget about the people who raised us, who were there in our moments of need. But now is the time for us to step up, to make sure our elderly aren't forgotten, neglected, or left to fend for themselves. Whether it's through building a network of support, using technology to stay connected, or simply being there when they need us most, we have the power to make a huge difference in their lives. Let's not wait until it's too late to show our elders the love, care, and attention they deserve. After all, love is always there, but sometimes it's hard to say. Let's say it through our actions.